Hamilton's silent walk into the paddock commentary voiceover. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ferrari banners, Italian press buzzing, but Hamilton stays reserved, subtle tension in the air. Not visible to most, but felt Hamilton's. Move to Ferrari, the why behind it his goal, not to retire quietly, but to transform something broken. Contrast, Mercedes exit versus Ferrari entry, media pressure, fan expectations, internal politics, a history of near successes and internal implosions, the culture Hamilton walked into, hierarchy, tradition, caution. Leclerc's favorite status, subtle, but present hints of inner factions in the team. FP1, smooth running, great feedback. FP2, Hamilton fastest in long runs, backroom strategy meeting. Request for setup tweak is ignored. FP3, performance, collapses. Handling is erratic. Hamilton's frustration not shown on radio, only seen in body language. Telemetry anomalies, unexpected ride height shift, rear-end instability unexplained by engineers. Adami warns Hamilton softly, they made a change late last night. Hamilton chooses not to react, plays the long game, setup cannot be changed. Post FP3, Hamilton fights the car, puts together scrappy laps, misses Q3, ends P1 to contrast with Leclerc's P4, calm garage. Celebration versus Hamilton's silent. Exit Sunday night debrief, invitation only, engineers tight-lipped. Senior management ups and Hamilton asks one question: do we want to compete or just conform? He exposes the data, where the car failed, why, and how it could have been avoided. Adami sides with him, indirectly, but decisively. Others stay silent. The politics are louder than words. Ferrari technical leadership divided, old guard, vice, adaptive engineers. Some see Hamilton as an outsider disrupting their legacy. Leclerc, though quiet, is perceived as one of them. Anonymous sources leak fragments of the briefing, fueling speculation. Comparative analysis, Hamilton versus Leclerc, ride height, diff preload, brake bias mapping all diverged from planned spec. Hamilton's side of the garage had invisible limitations. This wasn't just poor luck, it was avoidable. 10. Setup or sabotage? The question that splits the fanbase. Conspiracy versus culture. Was this deliberate sidelining or systemic dysfunction? Hamilton never claims sabotage, but he knows line. This isn't personal, it's structural. Hamilton and Adami develop a longer-term plan, use race weekends to expose the car's weak points, publicly force Ferrari to adapt or break strategic silence, when to speak, when to perform. Not villainized, but a symbol of Ferrari's comfort zone. He thrives in stability. Hamilton thrives in challenge, mutual respect, but different philosophies. Internal whispers, can the team manage to outfit drivers? Italian press split, some defend Hamilton, others question him. British media sides with Lewis, but cautiously fans on social media begin decoding team radio. Telemetry overlays official statement. We are reviewing all performance-related variables. Internally, political firestorm. Some engineers moved, some silence. Adami remains beside Lewis. For now, Hamilton reflects privately. Change never begins comfortably. This wasn't a failure. It was a crack in the surface. Ferrari is at war with itself, and Lewis is holding the mirror. Future races hold the next clues. Hamilton is ready. This was only move one. Final line. He didn't flinch. He never does. Asterisk, the paddock buzzed with anticipation. Cameras clicked, reporters whispered, and the world watched. Yet, Lewis Hamilton walked in silent, composed and unreadable. Clad in his black Ferrari team gear, he looked more like a man headed into battle than a Formula One driver arriving for race weekend. But this wasn't just another weekend. Something was off, not wrong, just different. There was a quiet tension hanging in the humid air of Monza, subtle but heavy. Something was brewing, and Hamilton could feel it. You could see it in the way he adjusted his gloves, slower than usual. You could sense it in the side-eye glances from his crew. And though the Italian sun still shone brightly above the Scuderia garage, there was a storm coming. This wasn't about lap times. This was about something deeper. For Lewis Hamilton, this wasn't just a career move. Leaving Mercedes for Ferrari was seismic. It shook the world of motorsport. Critics called it madness. Fans called it bravery. Hamilton called it necessary. 7 world titles weren't enough to silence the voice in his head. You haven't changed the game until you change the system. And Ferrari, a team both iconic and fractured, was the perfect storm. Ferrari needed him, but perhaps more than that, they needed disruption. Lewis came not to adapt, but to evolve, to challenge the traditions that had hardened into dysfunction. He didn't join to make friends, He came to win, but not just on the track, internally. Ferrari was split. The old guard revered the red, the new wave wanted reinvention. Hamilton stood at the epicenter, a living paradox, both catalyst and threat. This wasn't about the checkered flag. This was about legacy, power, and a fight to reform a kingdom too proud to admit it was crumbling. Ferrari has always been a team of brilliance wrapped in bureaucracy. For every world title, there were 2 seasons of chaos. The Scuderia's weakness was never speed. It was politics, and now, in 2025, that fragile balance was again under pressure. Internally, factions existed. Some believed in Leclerc as the chosen one. After all, he was young, charismatic, fluent in Italian, and raised in the Ferrari ecosystem. To them, Hamilton was an outsider, a decorated legend, but also a threat to stability. The cracks began to show early. Strategy meetings where Hamilton's inputs were noted but never implemented. Engineering debriefs where data from Car 40 mysteriously vanished for hours. Before resurfacing, Leclerc's side of the garage hummed like a machine. Hamilton's, always slightly out of sync. This was no coincidence. This was Ferrari. And yet, Lewis stayed calm, because before you dismantle a system, you must first expose it. By the time free practice 3 ended, there was a growing murmur within the paddock. Something was off with Hamilton's car. It wasn't just balance, it was behavioral. The rear end was unstable on high-speed corners. The braking zones were twitchy, and the telemetry was showing abnormal tire degradation across both stints. For a driver as surgically precise as Hamilton, it was like trying to paint with a broken brush. Yet when he walked into the post-session briefing, he said nothing dramatic. No complaints, no panic, just 3 words. Run the overlay. The room fell quiet. Engineers pulled up comparative telemetry between Leclerc and Hamilton. Same compound, similar track conditions, but vastly different corner exit behavior. The data confirmed what Hamilton already felt. His car had been set up for a completely different philosophy: stiff rear, low ride height, reduced stiff preload. It looked like someone had reverted to the Barcelona Speca setup known to favor Leclerc's style, but one Hamilton had already deemed incompatible with the current aero upgrades. He looked at his race engineer, Riccardo Adami. No anger, just the calm, clinical delivery of a man used to being doubted and proving people wrong. It's not driver error, he said. It's design sabotage. 5. A silent war in the garage. Inside the Ferrari garage, silence speaks, louder than orders. Mechanics knew not to say too much. Engineers typed more than they talked. And team principals smiled in interviews while fires burned behind closed doors. But the real story wasn't in the paddock chatter, it was in the micro decisions. Who got the newer floor? Who received the real-time sim updates? Who was allowed to veto a tire strategy mid-race? At Monza, every answer pointed in one direction: Leclerc. In team meetings, Hamilton's feedback was nodded at but rarely actioned. Even Adami, who had quietly grown to admire Hamilton's precision, was being pulled into 2 worlds. One where he served a legend, another where he obeyed a machine.